The Lakes School in Troutbeck, Windermere, celebrates its 60th birthday today. It's an ordinary co-ed secondary school with sixth form, but it does have a rather special history because it's located on the Calgarth estate where 80 years ago, back in 1945, more than 300 children who had survived the Holocaust were brought. They became known as the Windermere children. In fact, a film of that name was made about that piece of history 5 years ago. One of those children was Arek Hersh. Born in Poland, Arek was imprisoned in Auschwitz. He survived a death march before being finally liberated in 1945. He is 97 now. He shared his memories of first coming to that Calgarth estate 80 years ago.
We went into barracks and we had 3 beds high. And then we used to meet in the dining room to eat breakfast, lunch, and evening meal. And we had lessons, we had exercise. I've enjoyed Windermere very much. I used to walk around and went around the lake and did all sorts of different things. We had some people came and showed us certain games, but I was a footballer. I used to play football and exercise. Used to walk a lot. Every day we did something different. From the children that we came together, had very much made a lot of friends. Even I couldn't speak a word of English, but I tried every day to learn a few words. And it took a bit of time, and eventually I've got a language as I went along. Oh, yes, it was... we enjoyed ourselves, and we were here for 6 months, and life went on quite well.
97 now, so he would have been 17 about then, 80 years ago, arriving at the Calgarth estate from Auschwitz. Extraordinary. Well, Arek eventually settled in Liverpool, where he got married and had 3 children. Today, the school on that site is marking not just its birthday, but that link with a pretty big event. It's also thinking about how the history of that shall be preserved. Well, a little earlier, I spoke to the host of the event on the site tonight, Rinder, who first told me his personal link to today's celebration.
The Lake School is built on the Calgarth estate up here in beautiful Windermere. And 80 years ago, 700 young Holocaust survivors of 732 that were brought to Britain temporarily came here to this place. And amongst them was my grandfather. And here he began the work of healing, having lost his entire family who were murdered in the Holocaust. And it's an incredible story about local people doing everything they can to be kind to people who had never met Jews before, and what happened to the generations who live on because of this place.
And those hundreds of children, survivors of the Holocaust, came to the Lake District, and broadly speaking, most have settled in this country and gone on to great things. Families, create families like your own.
Do extraordinary things. When my grandfather arrived, he didn't really speak about the Holocaust at all, but the thing he would share was what it meant to him to be in safety for the first time. And for him and many of the survivors, they described it as paradise. And as you say, many of them went on to have families, to build lives. But the thing that they were gifted here in Windermere, not a city where perhaps the places you would expect somebody from to be an outsider to be received, they were gifted this sense of real love in the true sense of that word for Britain and all of its values. And as you say, many have gone on to do extraordinary things, my grandfather amongst them.
What was the Calgarth estate, out of interest, Rob? I mean, were these old barracks? You obviously got suddenly hundreds of people to accommodate. I mean, what was there?
So the Calgarth estate has a rich history. It was a factory during the war. There was production, as some listeners might know, during the war to keep production of seaplanes going, for example. They would use Lake Windermere. After the war, there were the places where local people lived who were working here, many of whom who were conscripted into that work. And it was transformed, as I say, by volunteers, by Jewish agencies, but chiefly by local people who responded to the call when they heard that there were these children coming. It was the first time they'd slept on sheets. It was the first time that they could breathe and recover from the nightmare that they had been through and the enduring traumas that they took into their lives.
Now, obviously, on that site, the Lakes School, and they're celebrating their birthday,
Yeah.
came a little bit after the Windermere children, but they're very much connected to that history. And they are, what are they announcing today, Rob? In fact, you're part of all of this quite big celebration there today.
Well, it's 60 years on, and one of the things that this school shares, because of this story, this legacy that it really feels gifted to have, are the values of courage, decency, and community. And so that's what they're honouring tonight, but also thinking moving forward about the possibility of how we build that legacy moving on. And perhaps on this ground, maybe building a school around the values of the boys. There's already a gym here that's named after Sir Ben Helfgott. And Sir Ben, who led the 45 Aid Society, which my mum, Angela Cohen, now runs, he was the man who was amongst the boys alongside my grandfather. And having lost so much of his life and his family, within, I think, 12 years or so of his survival, he was representing Britain in the Melbourne Olympics as a weightlifter, and went on to do just the most important things in Holocaust education. There's a gym in this school named after him, where kids have the opportunity to connect with his story of courage and of British values at their very best. So tonight we think about perhaps building on that legacy and what the school might be moving forward with that ethos, which is a really exciting prospect.
Rob Rinder there, grandson of one of the Windermere children.